Hey guys, this is Asher. I am the founder and destroyer of Blashko. I'm going to do some semi-drunk commentary on This is Whitebird, a movie that I made in 2016. It's You might notice that the commentary is twice as long as the movie, and that's because I'm actually going to do commentary on the movie and then the blooper reel, which is just about the same length. So, I guess first, since this song is going to go away real quick, I want to say something about, it was one of those light bulb epiphany moments when I decided to use this song, or, realized that this song was perfect for the intro and ending of this movie, because, there's, usually when you're adding a song to a movie, it's all about the feel, of the scene. But when you get really into picking the right music, and for example, American Beauty has really great music. The lyrics if the lyrics match what's going on, then it's like even better. It makes that aha moment really wow. And I think the opening line is this: I drove my car from the river to the bar and drove it back again. This song is called Impervious by Ambulance Limited. Anyway, so first off, I guess I should just say, how did I learn about Whitebird? Well, I didn't. I was told about Whitebird, I guess, so I did. But my uncle, who is actually the producer of this film, he bought that bar that's right behind this lady. It's called Max Bar. I think it had a longer name, but it's called Max Bar. And a really nice bar in Whitebird. And he was like, Asher, you pretend that you're a filmmaker, so why don't you go here and pretend to make a movie while you run this bar into the ground? Not to say anything against my ability to run a bar, probably not that good compared to, seasoned bar managers, but there really wasn't many places to run Max Bar other than into the ground. This footage that is being intercut here is of Whitebird Days, which is on Father's Day every year. And the population, goes from a couple hundred to a few thousand. I remember my first bartending gig, real bartending shift, was for Whitebird Days, and it was just packed. I mean, it was insane. It was like, if you work at a bar, it was like, imagine the busiest day you've ever done, but it's your first shift. And I remember it's very rare in my life where I work so hard that my legs are chafing, but I was chafing. So, yeah, I'm going to try not to be redundant and just go over, oh my God, the people in Whitebird love to drink, obviously they do. That's part of the documentary. So I'm going to try and go into things about the production. This movie was, as you can tell, it's very shaky. It was shot on an iPhone, I think 3. It was one of those small iPhones. I think the smallest iPhone they ever made. Very lightweight compared to the iPhone that I'm using to record this audio. The people that were in the documentary, there were so many people that I tried to interview that they were very reluctant. One of the inside jokes was that me and my uncle were from the CIA, and we were trying to see what the heck, what type of, guns these guys were piling up and what type of militia they were making, and which is like, if, anyways, they were a little paranoid about that. And they are very accepting to outsiders, but I think because we came in as business owners trying to make this bar work, they were a little more reluctant. Now, in general, everyone was very kind to me because I did come and live there. And it's such a small town that, they're not going to just be horrible to me. And if there were a couple people that didn't like me, they kind of just didn't talk to me. So almost all the music in this movie, other than the Ambulance Limited song that played earlier, I don't, quote, own the rights to, but I have complete permission to use. So that intro song, and that's playing right now, is actually from my good friend Matt, his ex-band, Tantric Picasso.
We could come up here, we could swim in the rivers, we could swim in the creeks.
And then there's a song from Bill Baird and there's another song from Tantric Picasso. Bill Barrett is like not really my buddy, but he's not gonna try and sue me because his song's in it. I think he knows about it and likes it. It is really gorgeous there. If you happen to be anywhere in Boise, between Boise and Lewiston, it's definitely worth taking a stop to Whitebird. I honestly, after I released the blooper reel, they hated me. They really hated me for. One of the guys tried to fight me in the bar. The bar meaning the Silver Dollar. The bar that they go to is the Silver Dollar, and then there's Max Bar there too.
A little too personal sometimes, but
in general, these people that are in the movie were really open to being interviewed. Obviously, I didn't force anyone to be interviewed. And they were kind of the characters of the town. Everyone liked them, but I think a lot of people didn't really like having the big characters of the town represent the town as a whole. And actually, I had to dig this out of my Instagram, but I'm just going to go ahead and read you this review. I've never had anyone actually review my movie, any of my movies, other than like a YouTube comment here and there saying, "Oh, good job," or "This sucks," or whatever. But the Whitebird Bulletin, if that's what it's called, I think it's probably Idaho County Bulletin or something like that. They had an editorial where they reviewed the movie. And so I'm going to read that really quick. So here, quote, "I don't know if many of you have seen the YouTube video about Whitebird that has been going around, but to many of the residents, it's a slap in the face. As quoted by a resident, quote, 'This makes me so angry. This is in no way, shape, or form anything like what this community is or stands for. It saddens me that Asher ran around with his cell phone videoing people and put this online, calling it a documentary that supposedly depicts how we live. It is not only inaccurate, but I feel like we have all been made fun of. Asher, you should be ashamed of yourself.'" The review goes on, but I think that's I'll just end it on the highest point, which is them calling me out in the review by name, saying I should be ashamed of myself. Now, there is a comment down here by Brody Lowe. Man, I might beep his name, but the Lows are in it, or, they know me. But he says on the YouTube comments, he says, "This is the town I grew up in. This is a very honest and insightful depiction of the town. Thank you for your work." So, but anyways, I just thought that was pretty funny. And I kind of get why they are mad. There is a whole other side of the Whitebird story to be told for the long-term resident. When you need help, they do kind of come together and help you. But in general, it's like a high school. Really, it felt more like a high school being in Whitebird, where everyone knew everything that was going on, gossip. To my knowledge, I always knew that these small towns existed. Everyone does. But I thought that you would move to these small towns to avoid drama, to get out of that petty shit. But really, it's worse than cities. It's everyone knows everything about everyone and da 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 da. And it was pretty wild, realizing that. Now it would have been great if I was a real filmmaker and actually made this with a real camera, but I think I've embraced being a lo-fi filmmaker because there aren't that many. And this is kind of a testament. I mean, I'm not saying this looks horrible or anything like that. It doesn't look like a Hollywood production, but if you're interested in slice of life stuff, you're going to watch it, as long as you can hear it. That's really what's important. I'm pretty happy with the way I edited it and structured it. It was very kind of hard to, figure out how. It was like a puzzle. Editing is like a puzzle. Making movies is like a puzzle, especially documentarianism. Wow, what a word. Making documentaries, you're kind of you get a bunch of footage. It's funny that documentaries have writers. Kind of. I mean, yeah, I was writing it as I was editing it. I knew the footage and took it out, and cut it out. And so I went from, I think it's like the very intro, like the kind of the premise, and then we go into the intro of the town, and then we go into the location, and then we go into the people, and then we go into the culture, then we'll get into the youth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that was a kind of cool way to structure it. It really was the only way that I was going to, once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I can actually make this movie. Because it was just so much random footage. And that's actually the right. Yeah, that's where I was living. Was where that dog was. And there's some ironic cuts here when he's talking about houses. I show that stuff. It was fun. To play around with this stuff and all this bad stuff is in the blooper reel. There's a whole karaoke section of actual footage of karaoke in the blooper reel. This he runs the water treatment. Jerry, he sings a song that he wrote about Whitebird, about an incident in Whitebird. In the blooper reel. This is on Halloween. You could see the Whitebird Barbie. So yeah, they do love Keystone. Supposedly, I've heard that Keystone wouldn't exist if it weren't for Whitebird. Now that sounds like just total BS. Whitebird lore that they saved this horrible piss brand of beer. But whatever. I'll let them have it if that's what they really want.
See that these people have a peaceful life here on this river. That's something they can understand.
You are who you are.
So that guy's dog, he actually appeared in the movie, the guy who owns that mangy dog. He literally is a Nazi. Okay, literally. Not a neo-Nazi. He's an old guy. He's a Nazi, meaning his dad worked for Hitler, and his dad was, along with him, was brought over during Project, I think it was called Project Paperclip. It was when they brought all the smart Nazis over to not be tried by war crimes and not be put to death and go to jail and all that stuff. And so he's actually not a citizen of America. He's lived in Whitebird most of his life. And he is banned from every grocery store and bar in the whole county. And now Whitebird is the second, or Idaho County, which is where Whitebird is I think the second largest county in the nation. And I think it has the least amount of state troopers per capita. I think there's like 12 state troopers in the second biggest county in America. So when they say that the cops don't come into town, I mean, it's not 100% true. The cops do come into town when the town, the residents call the cops. But no, they don't really come into town unless, there were all this gunfire, like not just hunting. And so here we got the kids. I was able to interview some of the kids. There's a bunch of stuff that never ended up in the movie. I interviewed a girl, but she was just visiting, so it didn't really fit quite as well.
The gang fights and the riffraff and the gang wars and all this stuff.
It's kind of nice when you can turn your kids.
One of the things I really liked about Whitebird, being in Whitebird, was you kind of didn't have to deal with all of the synapse overload that you deal with in the city. One of the kids I went there with, or one of the times, so I went to Whitebird 4 times, so I guess, let's get into more of the stuff that isn't explained in the documentary. I went to Whitebird, I think, 4 times total, and spent about a total of 6 to 9 months there. I can't remember exactly how much it was. There was one stint where I was there for like 3 months. And then there was one stint that I was there for like a week, so it totally varied. But it ended up adding up to about half a year to maybe 3/4 of a year. And like I said, it was just because my uncle had bought this bar. He's an exchanger, and he needed a warm body to try and run this place. So yeah, they in the Silver Dollar they have these quote for amusement only quote gambling machines. I don't know how. I guess they just went and bought them at a pawn shop or something. But yeah, no, the Silver Dollar. There's a lot of stuff that is not. This is inside the Silver Dollar. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of unofficial about the Silver Dollar that if the IRS found out, or basically the Silver Dollar is a bank, but it's also Silver Dollar is a bar, but it's also basically the town bank. So they will cash people's checks and have them sign them over to them. People build up tabs there for like thousands of dollars, I'm guessing. And it is like the cheapest beer I've ever seen. I think it's $1.25 a beer, and then $5 a pitcher, which is literally the same price as if you bought 4 beers. And $2 drinks, and you can get drunk. You can get drunk if you don't tip. You can get drunk off $4. or $6, you need to start walking home at that point. It was pretty cool, like drinking and driving. You know, you're not supposed to do it, but it was pretty fun. There's a reason that people used to do it all the time. I had a friend in Texas who played this game called Booze Cruising, and they would have those big heavy-duty trucks, you know, and that can, you know, you can run into a tree and back it up, you know. And the idea of the game was to see who could drink the most, drive them, you know, until they ended up in a ditch, which isn't, you know, the most wholesome game, but
in town. So that's
But,
half the population right there, see? And they drink. You know,
the Lenny, that guy, is that guy's name Lenny? I can't remember. Or that guy right there, he ran a thrift store across from Mac's Bar for a little bit, for one of the times I was there. I don't remember having to get up really early, like 5 in the morning, to interview this guy coming up. Yeah, this guy, Rockstar. And yeah, they deliver way more beer than you'd think they'd need at a little town where, you know, full of 100 people. It's like they consume, I don't know. The statistics of drinking is just scary. So one story, since I thought I'd have to wait to the blooper reel to tell this story, but when I was managing the bar, I was getting all drunk. Most of this movie was made while I was pretty drunk. I mean, you can even tell when I'm interviewing Vicky how shaky the camera gets, and I had to cut out the times where it was like really shaky, but I'm like drinking with her and getting all drunk. But I ran this bar, and that Nazi guy came over, and he had this weird infatuation with me because I'm Jewish, and I'm like not an idiot, I guess, which he assumed in his head that all Jews are total idiots. I'm guessing, because he was like really interested in me, invited me over, and it was kind of interesting going into his book, his library, because he had one shelf of books that had multiple books called White Power by different authors. I mean, oh my God, it was just like this. Yeah, he was a Nazi, you know, and he you know, totally thought that anyone who wasn't white or Aryan was just you know, basically worthless, and yeah, horrible person. But people hated him so much. And the other people at the bar were kind of getting into a tussle with him, so I was kind of trying to get it to end, and Al left. But one of the guys looped around the bar and went and tackled Al. That's his name. The Nazi. Tackled him. And this is a really old guy. Like, I don't care what type of stuff he's spewing. Like, you don't hurt old people. You know, if they're that unhappy and that horrible, then they're punished every day anyway. And I remember the next day, I'm like opening the bar, and the cop comes, and you know, you don't see cops too often, and he's like, "Hey, so that Al guy, you know, so he just tripped and fell, right?" And I was like, "What? No. Like, did you see his injuries? He broke teeth. He broke his nose. Like, what did he fall down?" And basically, by the morning, the entire town had choreographed this whole story of what happened to cover the guy who tackled him. And I went and I showed the cop the footage, because I don't lie to cops. You just don't lie to cops. I showed him the footage, and and he's like, "Oh." And then at the end, when I was editing this documentary, I was about to leave. I was only there for a couple, maybe a couple more days. I was smoking some weed, and it's very illegal to smoke weed there. And the cop smelt it. He came over for some reason. Something else was going in town. Wanted to know what I knew about it, because I was always telling him the truth instead of the people in the town. And he's like, "Are you smoking weed?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "You do not lie to me." And I was like, "Look, man," I was like, "I'm editing my documentary about this town." I was like, "I'm smoking a little bit of pot." And he comes in, and he's like, "What do you got? How much do you have?" And I give it, it's like a nugget, like a little bit of weed. And I hand it, and he's like, "Give it to me." I hand it to him. He pours it down the sink, turns the garbage disposal on, looks at me and says, "You helped me out when that guy got hurt, so I'm going to call this a freebie." Shook my hand and left. But anyways, now we're getting to the end of the movie. And when I did the premiere in the bar, and I burned a bunch of DVDs and sold them. I think I sold them for $5 a copy. And, I had people buy like 6 of them, because they were really excited. A lot of the town showed up. And one of the coolest things to me that really meant a lot, and if you're an artist, you will, and a filmmaker specifically, you will tally be able to relate to this, but And I know it's a captive audience, and I know it's totally, it's not really fair, but I think like 4 of the people that watched this were crying at the end of the movie. And I cannot tell you how much that warmed my heart and how much it really meant to me. I mean, it's I've had people laugh at my movies. I've had people hate my movies. I've had people love them. I've had people think some of my ideas were profound, but making someone cry, and again, I know it's a documentary about the town they're from. It's not really a fair representation of, is this going to make a bunch of people cry? No, of course not. This isn't a tearjerker of a movie at all. But it was so important to me, and so, that's honestly, I gotta say, as in my artistic career thus far, it's one of the high points. And this is the movie I show people. Like, when I meet new friends, this is the one I'm like, yeah, they're like, oh, you're a filmmaker? What can I watch? And I'm like, watch the Whitebird movie. And I really love this ending sequence. How it cuts back to the original song, and then it's like, I remember Mickey. So Mickey is one of the guys that Blake hired to run. He's a really good friend now. To run the bar, and he's like, everyone just keeps saying, oh, you don't have to worry about the cops here. This is Whitebird, or you can drink and drive. This is Whitebird. You should call it This Is Whitebird. And so that seed kind of festered, and then I realized, okay, yeah, I'm going to call it This Is Whitebird. So about halfway through the interviews, I was asking everyone to say, could you just give me a sound bite? This is Whitebird, and that's kind of what it did. And then actually, this is the first song I think that I've ever had written for a movie, and the song is called "This Is Whitebird," and it's by I don't even remember, Jenny and her brother, something like that. But yeah, this is whenever they say "This Is Whitebird" in the chorus, I just have other people saying "This Is Whitebird," all the ones that were not used in the final sequence, and yeah, I'm really proud of this movie. I'm kind of hesitant to say that about any other movie that I'm proud of. But this one I think is good. I wouldn't say it's an A+, or maybe even an A-. It's probably an A- if you really like slice of life documentaries. I know that a lot of my friends watched this and really enjoyed it, and a lot of my enemies watched it and didn't get back to me. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to take a shot and take a little break, and we're going to get into this Our Whitebird, and I'm going to see if I have any other shit to say about this, and if I don't, then I lied at the beginning, and this is only a 23-minute video. So, I don't know how many likes I'm going to get. Right now, we have 142. So a couple things I kind of forgot to mention, or one thing I forgot to mention was that Whitebird is actually the name of, there was Chief Joseph, and then I think it might have been Chief Whitebird. I don't know if it was Chief or, some other, title. But there's this movie called what's it called? I Will Fight No More Forever, something like that. And it's about the Nez Perce and their battle against, Chief Joseph and all that stuff. And literally, I think the first or second line in that movie is Chief Joseph introducing his friend to the evil Americans, and he says, "This is Whitebird," and I never knew that. I thought it was pretty funny. So this beautiful rendition is the intro to Whitebird Days, and this girl just volunteered to do it, and obviously she's pretty horrible, and I just filmed it, and this is the movie that when I went back to Whitebird the final time, they'd all seen the movie, or most of the people in the town had seen the movie, and most of them liked it. Honestly, most of them liked it. Some of them hated it because it wasn't, glorious and this majestic thing that they wanted it to be. But when I came back with DVDs with the blooper reel on it, I realized that night that it was not a good decision. And there was one guy in particular, I can't remember his name, I could remember his face, but there's one guy in particular who was just I've never gotten the like that the evil eye or whatever when someone's just like looking at you from the bar, and I was getting all blackout drunk, and I kept nodding to him and trying to smile and being like, "What's up?" And he came over to me, and he was so pissed about this blooper reel. So he was like blackout drunk, and he came up to me, and I don't remember it all, but he was spewing venom at me and saying like, you fucking, this and that, and like, how could you do this to this town, and and all this stuff. And I think this guy actually liked me before, he liked the documentary, but he hated the blooper reel. But in the town's defense, everyone in the bar was on my side. Everyone else, they were like, you cannot, like, look, this guy made this movie. Okay, you're mad. That's okay. But you cannot fight him. You cannot hurt him. Like, freedom of speech and all that stuff. And I kind of lied and said that I would take it off the internet. But I remember saying, like, look, I'm sorry. I did not mean to upset anyone. And obviously I did. So I'm just going to leave. And so I left the bar and I walked home. And that's the closest I've ever gotten into, like, a bar fight. Because I'm, like, kind of a total pussy and I just run away. So, but I really like this. Again, I like how I kind of mimicked the structure of This Is Whitebird into this Our Whitebird, which is the blooper reel is called This Our Whitebird, where I have outtakes and deleted scenes, and it's kind of like set up in a way where it has that Roman numeric, outline, and that's one of Mickey's friends. And here's Mickey. Mickey's the guy that he's holding the gun. He's the guy who came up with, so you can hear him say, "This is Whitebird" right there. Came up with the term "This is Whitebird," and he's a really great guy. He just had his first kid, so hopefully I'll meet his kid at some point. But here's the hilarious part where we have Marianne rapping Clint Eastwood by the Gorillaz to "Oh, I Wish I Were in Dixie." Such an interesting juxtaposition. And so here we have my favorite section of this movie. I'd say this is probably my section of the movie. Favorite section of the movie, River Stream Creek Crick. And this is, so Lenny is, everyone else knows I'm filming except Lenny. I think that guy's name's Lenny, but let's just say his name's Lenny. And he is so mad, and he hates being wrong, and he's just like that. He's like that, and I think it's really funny. So basically, if you don't know, if you've ever been in like a southern town predominantly, or a small town, a lot of them call creeks cricks. There is no difference. It's just what do you call that? Colloquialism. It's just even an accent. They call it a crick. It's a creek. There's no difference between a crick and a creek. And if you disagree, go into those comments and tell me how wrong I am. Supposedly, Lenny thinks that a crick is a creek that you can step over. But I think that he was kind of proven wrong in this. The scene goes on a little longer, but I cut it off when he says you don't have internet. So it was a whole other section of bloopers that I never put in because I didn't want to go through all the footage, but it's pretty funny. It's very hot in Whitebird. It's a valley. I know it's up north in Idaho, but it's super hot. I mean, Grangeville is up the hill quite a ways where you go up thousands of feet in elevation, and it could be snowing, and it's only a 20-minute drive or 15-minute drive to Grangeville, and it could be snowing up there, and you get down to Whitebird and it's raining. So if you know anything about bees and wasps, they kind of thrive on the heat, on the sunlight. And if it's too hot, they're kind of like upset. And man, there's so much footage of me, like where I'm filming something, getting a shot of something, and a bee flies next to me and I'm like running away. I have a very legitimate reason to be afraid of bees. Not just because I'm a pussy, but like one time when I was about 10, at my grandma's house, I was sleeping in my bedroom, and we had a beehive in the ceiling, I guess, and it fell through the ceiling, and so I woke up with all these bees on me, and probably 150 bees in my room, and it was like hell. But ever since then, I've had what I call a pretty legitimate fear of bees. So it's pretty funny seeing me like I'm like filming something and I'm like and I like almost drop the camera and I'm like running around running away, and it's pretty funny. But I never put that in there because it wasn't because of my embarrassment. I'm happy to embarrass myself. I'm happy to show me as a vulnerable human. But I didn't want to go through all the footage again because I had gone through it so much. Now, at this point, maybe I would do it and just make the B blooper. But here's the Grammy-nominated karaoke footage. It was pretty fun, and I remember singing "Take Me Home, Country Road" by John Denver, and getting a standing ovation. People were like, "Wow, this guy really nailed some John Denver." But this is just, a lot of the stuff in this R Whitebird in the blooper reel is stuff that didn't really fit right. It would have been weird in the structure of This Is Whitebird to like cut to not just karaoke footage, but like karaoke with the audio. I'm sure there's a couple times where it does, but it's like, this is just like, here we go, here's some fun highlights, and there's no full songs because it's just me running around. But this is me saying that I'm not afraid to embarrass myself. We'll see a great moment here coming up where I pretty much ruin the karaoke because I'm trying to film. And honestly, it's you can see at the beginning, these characters right here, these people, they were like, "Are you filming? What are you filming for?" And then I explained it. Then you don't see it, but I turned the camera off. I was like, "I'm making a documentary about Whitebird. Like, I'm just this innocent guy. I'm not with the CIA." And then I see them like kissing each other, and they're totally cool with it. It's kind of interesting how, people are like, once they get the context to something, they're something that they would be totally opposed to, they're more okay with. But honestly, these nights were really a blast. It really was fun. Singing karaoke, everyone's singing along, everyone's getting drunk. There's literally 17 cigarettes lit up in this little ass bar at the same time. And you can hear Mickey laughing, and Mickey and Allie, they were the first people to run the bar for my uncle, and they're really awesome people. So, but here we go. Anyways, let me try and think if there's anything else I can. I think this might be where I ruined the whole the karaoke song. Oh, yeah, I think this is it. So I'm gonna take a shot and let you just enjoy me being embarrassed. So basically what happened is I back up to the wall and my ass hits the plug and pops it right out of the fucking wall. And then I'm like still filming and I figure it out and I plug it back in. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But anyways, karaoke was always fun, and I think it was on Friday and Saturday. So if you're around there, Whitebird could not exist for all I know. I should actually, I should see if I can call someone from Whitebird and get them to do a little guest commentary on it. But that would be great. Maybe I'll do that in the morning or something, because at this point I think it's probably I don't know. But okay, so I actually found this song from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's called En el Tiempo de Colonia. I can't remember who it's by, but I'm sure it's in the description. Or it's in the description of the actual movie. But this is the deleted scene. It's not really. It was a scene constructed well after the movie had been finished. It's not deleted. I mean, I don't know. There were parts that I was trying to put in about the freedom you feel being in a town like Whitebird. And I think that if I included the scene somehow in the official movie, that more of the people would have really enjoyed it. From the town, because the people that didn't like it would have been like, at least it has this redeeming little chapter. And maybe it would have been cool if I like put this deleted scene tacked it on after the credits. Then they might be like, oh, okay, here's the final hurrah, the redemption. By the way, that girl is the girl who with the Element shirt. I had never noticed that. That's the girl who wrote the This Is Whitebird song with her brother. I can't remember her name. But
be more introverted.
But yeah, there is something to say about like living in a small town. You know, you live in a big apartment complex. You might never meet your neighbors because you're just not outside that often. You're not walking by each other that often. You might have completely different. You might go out of your way. Now, you might be the person who goes out of their way and, you know, talks to those people, brings them a pie. Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. You know, welcome to the complex is what you would be welcoming them to. But in Whitebird, you know, there was this sense of freedom of, like, I remember when I would drive to Whitebird, it sucked driving to Whitebird because the whole time I drove to Whitebird, I didn't have a valid license. So I was going through many states with Colorado plates right after they were one of the only states other than California to legalize pot. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get pulled over. But I just drove the speed limit and I didn't have my license for all 8 of those trips because it was 4 trips there and back in a car. I never got pulled over once. But it was like you get to Whitebird, and though there's a little like looming sense of boredom potentially, there is this sense of freedom of like you don't really have that many worries, you don't have that many cares, you know. Like most of the people there either own their house or paid such little rent that they could, you know, mow the lawn 4 times a month and make enough to pay their rent. And for me, my rent was covered. So I guess that's really a little unfair. But yeah, I mean, going into Whitebird was like, man, I was relaxed. I was like, here we go. I get to do what I want. I can drive around. You know, it's a beautiful drive up there. If you go on the old highway, it gets a little scary, and I would not suggest ever doing it drunk. But you're driving up really high up, and they have those not switchbacks, but like where they're like the highway's like a bowl. I can't remember what that's called, but where it's like the road actually curves upwards, like a Tony Hawk video game or something. And yeah, it was just there's so much just relaxed freedom.
Never before in my life have I experienced it. And I know if I got in trouble.
And you can see this line here was used in the actual documentary. So that's probably why, is because I kind of took this scene, the best parts of this scene, and made it into the ending, as opposed to really elaborating on it. So okay, so what's the next part? We're off to see the wizard. I know that river. That rafting trip with them was really good. I had never. Okay, here we go. Here's Jerry's song. So by the way, I just called Whitebird the Silver Dollar in this interim when I stopped recording, and I guess Jerry no longer lives in Whitebird. I wanted him particularly to do some commentary, but maybe after this interim I'll call Vicky. So actually, I'm going to pause it right now and call the bar again and see if Vicky's around. So this song is, I guess I'll just try and tell you the story. I don't really know all the names. And that's me, by the way. I was so hungry. I remember I had kept, and there's Max Bar, the shirt. I wish I still had that shirt. So that's me eating in the background. I guess Jerry kind of tells you the story. But it's kind of hard to hear because Max Bar had all these like vents going on, and and all this, the refrigerators, so it's kind of hard to hear. But basically, this girl got really fucked up and got bit by a rattlesnake, and they were driving her to the hospital. She was down in whatever is south of Whitebird. There's another little river town down there. And on the way, she demanded that they go and get more beer, get more whatever, whiskey or whatever she drank, and so that she, on her way up, and so that she could keep drinking while she's like dealing with the fucking venom of a rattlesnake. These people they're crazy people, but I really love them. So that's as far as I got when I did the commentary. I forgot that I had recorded commentary until I found it recently. So I'm just going to wrap things up here. I feel like I'm probably a more interesting and better person because of my time in Whitebird. I would like to thank all the people that allowed me to interview them, and all the people that fed me and drank with me and smoked with me and really were just supportive of the whole project, which is predominantly all the people that are in the movie. But yeah, I really think that little towns like this are a great example of, America and, the positive aspects of America. There's a few little tedious things, but, I was on the volunteer fire department because I was one of the of age people, or young and able-bodied, where the median age in Whitebird I think was around 60, which is just insane. And the population goes down because people die, and so few people actually move there. But I loved my experience in Whitebird. It's a great little chapter of my life, and I'm happy that I was able to produce this movie. And I know that a lot of people really enjoy this movie. So anyways, thank you for listening to the commentary. And if you ever go to Whitebird, tell him that asshole Asher said hey. Much love from Blashko.
Stop it. I mean it. I mean it, Richie, and I'm serious.